Avant de commencer, le lab était marqué sur les programmes en français-anglais. Donc j'avais posé déjà la question. Il y a quelqu'un dans la salle qui comprend pas le français? Okay, so we are going to do the initial presentation in English, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll try.
Let's improvise. So today we are going to do a hands-on lab on Flutter. It's going to be a 2-hour lab, and we are going to begin with a short introduction, some 15, 20 minutes. We are going to do the introduction in English, because there are some English-only people in the room. And then for the next, we will be there in the room, and we can answer questions in both English and French, and Spanish if you want. So let's begin by introducing ourselves and introducing the Brittany theme of our lab.
Yeah. So hello everyone. I'm Romain Rastel. I'm a Flutter lead expert at Orange Business Services. I discovered Flutter more than 1 year ago when it was still in alpha. And I created some packages for Flutter. And I wrote some articles too. And I'm also co-organizing a Flutter meetup in Rennes, my city, which is in Brittany, in France.
I am Horacio Gonzalez. You have maybe noticed a light accent. I am Spanish. I live in France. My English accent combines the worst traits of Spanish and French accents. I am deeply sorry. My French accent is even worse than my English one, so you are maybe lucky I do the talking English. I live in Brest, in the westernmost coast, in the westernmost corner of France. I am a Google developer expert in Flutter. I began to do Flutter with the first public alpha, then the beta, when it was very complicated to compile and install Flutter. And since then, I have used Flutter for every time I need to have an application, a mobile application done. And I work at OVH, hosting a cloud provider, the biggest European hosting and cloud provider. And then
Pierre Tibulle. I'm from Nantes. I'm invested in the community with GG Nantes Android. I work in ASI. It's you saying about mobile stuff. I do a lot of mobile stuff, hybrid and native. And I do games, iOS games, at C games. So
And if you know French geography, we come from the 3 biggest cities in the Brittany region, so our lab will be based on the Brittany region. And before we begin, everybody has followed the instructions, everybody has the environment ready and has launched the sample app. If you haven't done it, you have some 15 minutes to do it, or to choose somebody else to do pair programming.
Yeah.
So, what's Flutter? Well, talking about Flutter at an Android conference is quite a challenge for us. We are going to speak again about one solution to write applications for both Android and iOS. You already have heard about hybrid application, Cordova, Ionic, React Native, lots and Xamarin, lots and lots of solutions that promise the same thing. Why this one is different? Because it is different.
Oh yeah.
So that's the classical speech. It was the Google original speech about Flutter, but there are some keywords that are really true. Flutter is made by Google. For somebody, it doesn't mean anything positive, but you are Android developers. So It's made by Google, by a completely different team of Android. It's rather new. The 1.0 version was released in December.
Yeah.
December.
Yeah.
It's full open source, of course. And the idea was to create a mobile UI toolkit, but not a generic one. No, one specifically addressed to developers to create high-quality mobile experience. I mean, we aren't talking about something hybrid, something where you have a bridge between two technologies and performance gap. We are going here for something that compiles to fully native code. You are going to have performance at least as good as native one, sometimes even better because you aren't using the OM platform widgets. And everything, all of that, very, very quickly. The learning curve of Flutter is one of the smoothest I have seen in 20 years of career. And you agree?
Oh yeah. Very, very.
And I think you, after 2 hours, you are going to agree about that.
It's very developer-oriented, and it's really great to experience. First experience is really great. You will see during these 2 hours.
So, you are all Android developers. More or less, I think. So you are used to the classical Android workflow. You are going to write your app in Java or in Kotlin, and then your app is going to talk to the platform widgets, and they are talking to the canvas and receiving the events, and your code is talking directly to the services offered by your smartphone, the location, the Bluetooth, the audio, the network, all of that. It was the original way to doing things, but if you try to do cross-platform, that means your native code was going to be completely different in Android and iPhone, for example. So really quickly, maybe 10 years ago, we began to see the first hybrid solutions. The promise was, yeah, so now you need 3 teams to do an app, a web team, an Android team, an iOS team. Oh, let's do the things with only one team, the web one. So we have a JavaScript web application that talks not with the native widget, but with a web view. And the web view was going to talk with the canvas, with the events. And in order to access the services, you had a bridge. Something like a Apache Cordova, PhoneGap at the moment, or now Capacitor, for example. Something that, from this side, it speaks JavaScript, and it translates it in something able to speak with the phone services, either in Android or in iOS. It works great, but you are using a web view, and you are crossing a bridge. So performance aren't top, and the look and feel is a look and feel web. For many applications, it's enough, it works. But if you want a high-quality application, the look and feel isn't going to be really native-like. Sometime after, you have the native script or React Native approach. When you aren't using a web view, you are talking directly with the native widgets using a bigger bridge. So now you have a bridge in order to make your JavaScript talk with the native widgets and your JavaScript talk with the services. As you are using native widgets, you are getting a look and feel fully native, but there is a performance cost. And if even people who really love React Native, they know, and they write a lot of blog posts about that crossing this bridge has a cost. So they say, oh, let's try to minimize the interaction in order to be the application more performant. It's a good solution, but it's far away for native. Same shows with Xamarin, for example, and with other projects. This kind of technology with a bridge can get a native look and feel, but no native performance. Why is Flutter different? Because Flutter, you are going to get that. You aren't talking to any native widgets. Instead, the widgets are redefined in the Flutter solution, and all your app, the widget definition, the drivers, and your native your code, it's compiled into native platform binaries, and you are talking directly to the canvas, directly listening to events, and talking and discussing directly with the services. You are going to have native performance, and for some widgets, if they are well built, as it's the case of most of Flutter widgets, you are going to be able to have even better performance for animations and things like that, because you are talking directly with the canvas and with the events from your native code. So Flutter, it allows you to write your application, compile them directly into native code today for Android and for iOS, and the teams are working into doing also that for desktop and web and other platforms, and having something that is fully native and that access directly the terminal capabilities. Well, no need to see that. Only the Flutter is based on an engine with very known components. Skya, it's the curve renderer for Chrome. Dart is internally used for Chrome from years in key projects like AdWords. And over this foundation, they have built a whole stack in Dart. And then, that's one of the questions everybody asks us at these moments. Why? Why Dart? Because it's a Google language and Google like to push their products. It was my first idea, but not really. There are some good reasons in order to use Dart. Dart is a language that is built to offer two compilation possibilities. You can have ahead of time compilation, a classical like the C, C++ compilation, where you are going to generate fully binaries native to the target platform, and then you are going to have native performance. But you can also have a just-in-time compilation. That means that when you are developing with Flutter, in the development phase, you are going to use the just-in-time compilation. Any change you do in your code, you are going to see it directly in your emulator in your phone. With a bonus, the just-in-time compilation is rather smart, so it can add only the change you have done and dynamically inject them in your code. That means when you are changing something, you can keep the state of your application. It's directly applied, and you don't need to restart the emulation. It keeps the state, it keeps the variable values, everything. And then, when you are ready, you are going to compile. And then you are getting something that is fully native. So the first generation of Dart was a good language for that. And also, it's a language adapted to the way where you are working with Flutter. It's a language in which object creation and garbage collection are really cheap, especially when you are creating lots and lots of small objects, and you are destroying lots and lots of small objects. The idea is, when working with Flutter, every time you are going to redraw the screen, you are going to destroy the widget and recreate them. And the language is optimized for this kind of behavior. And a special one, Dart is an easy language. It isn't a hipster language or Rust or I don't know which other. It isn't a language with exotic feature. if you have done JavaScript, you are going to understand Dart. If you have done Java, you are going to understand Dart. If you have done any old traditional object-oriented language, you are going to understand Dart. All of you, 2 hours after the beginning of the lab, you are going to understand Dart. And that's, for me, a good argument. Using a language that is easy to learn and that it doesn't place itself in your path, it's always a good thing. So, I have talked a lot. Do you want to talk a bit? Or I continue?
Go on, go on.
Oh, okay. So Flutter, the idea is we are going to do something different from traditional layout engines. With traditional layout engines, you had a lot of rules that you could apply to every widget, even if it didn't make any sense for that concrete widget. That means that you had to apply all the rules to all the widgets in a cascading way in order to apply them to all the widget children. And really often you had some conflicting rules. You had to have a very performant conflict resolution engine. And it made that rendering widgets was rather slow. It's the case with most traditional layout technologies, and the extreme example is HTML, CSS. The Chrome team decided, okay, if we were going to reinvent the rendering engine in Chrome right now, what will we do? They couldn't do it because there was some standard for the web, but the people behind the project had created a new layout paradigm in which for every widget, only the pertinent subset of rules could be applied. It was way faster, it was way simple, and they couldn't use it, so they decided to use it for another project, for Flutter. So the idea is in Flutter, everything, layouts, margin, positioning, padding, theme, the whole application, everything are widgets. Even scrolling is simply a kind of widgets. And the rules you can apply to every widget are a small subset. For example, here, you are going to have a first widget, the application widget, that is going to have a column widget in which you are going to have some widgets. This one is going to be an horizontal widget, etc., etc. If you have done Android, it doesn't look too different for the moment. The difference is how we are going to declare and use those widgets. So we are creating, here don't try to read, please. We are going to see that later. We are creating a whole layout tree with a reduced set of rule set for every node. Okay, I see what are you saying now. It looks too complicated. Don't worry, it's only introduction. We are going to see it in the lab. And you can also use tools in order to make that even easier. Donc, I had too many slides for that. It is responsive. It adapts easily to every screen. The themes are really easily applied because your application is going to have an associated theme widget that you can change on the fly, and the theme change on the fly for all the widgets in your application. You have the full Material Design 2.0 implementation. In fact, the Material Design 2.0 was available for Flutter before even for Android.
Yeah.
It's the canonical implementation of Material Design 2.0, but you can also use a Cupertino widget set, and you have a really almost really pixel perfect, because there is still 1 or 2 small pixel difference with a iPhone 10. And the best feature for moi is you are going to have really, really fast UIs with the mythical 60 FPS are easy to attain with Flutter, and you are going to have a very big flexibility. When your designer tells you, I want an application like that, you aren't going to have to say then anymore, yeah, but it is difficult to do that with the native widgets in Android or in iOS. If you want to do custom, you are going to be able to customize your application easily based on the Flutter widgets, creating, extending your own widgets. Everything is going to be compiled to native code. Everything is going to be performant, but you will be able to offer a customized user experience, a customized design for your user interface. So, 2 minutes resume. Your application with Flutter is going to be beautiful. In a sense, if you have a designer, it tells you, could you do that, please? You are going to say them, yes, I can. It's going to be fast. Everything will be compiled to native code. You are going to feel productive, and you are going to see that in the lab. Most of the code lines you are going to write will be productive code lines. You won't have almost any useless code, configuration, and all that. And it will be really easy to build new widgets, new plugins, new things based on the Flutter platform. Blah, 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 blah. So it's a good moment to begin with Flutter. The 1.0 was released that December. It's getting a good moment right now. It's a good moment to begin to play, to see if you like it, and if you like it, it's a good moment to invest in Flutter. For me, it's a real game changer. Maybe in 5 years, nobody will speak about Flutter, but the Flutter principles, for me, they change the way how I develop my application, and it's really interesting. So the moment, the tools integration. So, in brief, I have spoken way too much. It's the moment to begin to code. So please, people, get out to your laptop. And if you haven't a laptop or a Flutter environment, please get together with somebody else. And we are going to look at what those Flutter looks like. We have a codelab. It's there. All the source are on GitHub, on Pierre's repository. You will be able to get all the links to the source directly in the lab. It follows Google codelab standard, so you will see it's a classical codelab. And then I think we are going to begin. Let's try to copy that in a new tab. Let's try to copy that in a new tab. Let's try to make Wi-Fi work. Please, Wi-Fi, can you work?
Voilà.
Thank you. And we stop here. So for the next... So now we can speak in English and Francais.